Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Katie, and this is The Housewife Did It.
True Crime Edition. All right. I don't have any real-time true crime. I feel like we haven't in a while.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen anything of note. Um, my story today does have a content warning for mentions of sexual assault, domestic abuse, abortion, and statutory rape. I also want to point out that a lot of the sources I found conflicted with one another.
Okay.
So I did my best to put the pieces together, and I will clarify as I'm reading, like, if I found different reports of specific events.
Okay.
Just so you know, it may have been this way, it may have been a different way.
Those are the worst, but...
It's very difficult to research this case. I will not be doing another Mindhunter serial killer because it is hard. But yeah. So, I'll get started. You ready?
Yep.
At around 8:30 p.m. on June 22nd, 1990, 27-year-old Mary Ann Polrick from Redmond, Washington, got dressed in white and headed to Papagayo's East Side bar with her friend Rick Bryant. When he got bored of the dance bar, he left early. Mary wanted to stay with her other friends, and continue drinking her Long Island iced teas.
Cute.
The next morning, Mary Ann's nude body was found behind the parking lot of either a McDonald's or a restaurant called Black Angus in Bellevue, Washington, near a sewer grate and a dumpster.
Those sound like very different things.
Right. This is what I'm saying. Like, how are you mixing these up?
Okay. Got it.
She was completely naked except for 2 pieces of jewelry. She had been strangled and her hands were clasped on top of a pine cone. Her legs were crossed at the ankles the way they would be. It says the way they would be at a funeral. Like, I think if she were in a casket and you, like, cross, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And her eyes had been covered with a plastic Frito-Lay dip container lid.
Dip container lid. Okay.
Her purse, sweater, and car were found to still be at Papagayo's. Her autopsy revealed that she had been kicked so hard her liver had split against her spinal column.
Yikes. So she's kicked in the spine or kicked in the front?
Wherever her liver is.
Yeah.
Wherever her liver is, and then it got pushed against her spinal column and split. The beating to her head, they believed, was likely caused by fists, and she had been raped. She had an anal tear, and it was believed that that had been caused by a non-human object. Her blood alcohol level was 0.14.
That's
Mary Ann Polrick.
Is that a lot? Yeah, I guess.
No,
it is.
I don't think.
Well, like 0.08 is the driving limit, so it would be like.
But least... I mean, like we knew she had been out drinking.
So it's not like absurd, but
right. Mary Ann Polrick was born on December 28th, 1962. After scouring the internet, here is what I was able to find about who Mary Ann was as a person. She had had a strict Christian upbringing. She had moved to Bellevue for some freedom from home and to study computers. She was sharing an apartment with a friend and was working as a telemarketer at the time of her death. She loved to go out with her friends and have fun and dance as part of the 90s club scene. She had apparently requested "You Can't Touch This" by MC Hammer at least 5 times on the night she was murdered.
Wait, cute, girl.
I know. We love a hyperfixated queen.
Yeah.
And her gravestone reads, "A rose that blooms behind the wall."
Why doesn't it have a lyric from "You Can't Touch This"?
It's a
Y'all don't even know her.
She's a club girly. 7 weeks later, on August 9th, 35-year-old Carol Beef spoke to her ex-husband around 9:30 p.m. and then spoke with her boyfriend Mike Sewell around 10:30 p.m. to discuss an upcoming vacation they were going on together. Around midnight, she met a friend at the Keg restaurant where he was a bartender before leaving and heading home at around 2:15 a.m. Her 13-year-old daughter, Kelly, had been up in the middle of the night chatting with a friend at her window, which is so 1990, I
Yeah,
feel
I'm
like.
like, man.
At around 4:15 a.m.
Yikes, girl.
I know. 15 minutes later, she thought she saw someone searching through the rooms of her house with a flashlight. So, like, she's in her bedroom, like, door closed, like, whispering to her friend at the window in the middle of the night, and she thinks she sees, like, a flashlight
Interesting.
going room to room in the hallway.
Yeah.
When she went to investigate, the intruder had disappeared. She wondered at one point if it had been her mother's boyfriend, but then she saw that her mother's car was still outside, and at this point her mom had not gotten up for work, so she became worried. She knocked on her mother's bedroom door and didn't get a response. When she tried to open the door, it was locked. Keep in mind she is 13.
Okay.
So she's like, my mom's being private, whatever.
Yeah.
So she went into the living room to watch TV and wait for her mom, but she became worried again when her mom still did not come out of her room.
Yeah, plus if it was the boyfriend, like, wouldn't he just turn on the lights?
Yeah. Why is he being weird? She went outside and came back in through the sliding glass door to her mom's bedroom. She can't get the bedroom door open from the hallway, so she goes around to, like, the patio.
Okay.
And this is when she found her mother's nude body. She was lying on her back, and her bedspread had been pulled down to the foot of the bed. Her left arm was bent upward at the elbow, and her right arm was bent downward at the elbow. So, like, this.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost like her hand was on her hip.
Mm.
I also saw reports that her ex-husband was the one who found her, not her daughter, and that her two daughters were home, but they did not realize what had happened. So I don't know for sure who found her. I saw it more often reported that it was the 13-year-old daughter.
Okay.
She had been bludgeoned with an unknown weapon and had bite marks down her arms. The weapon she had been beaten with sliced her ear and left 13 Y-shaped cuts on her body. Which is like a pretty distinctive shape.
Yeah.
She had also been kicked, and two of her ribs had been broken so severely that they had penetrated her chest cavity.
Yikes.
She had a plastic dry cleaning bag wrapped around her face and a pillow over her head. Her legs had been spread and bent, facing her bedroom door. Red high heels had been placed on her feet, and Carol's own 22 long rifle had been inserted 5.5 inches into her vagina.
Jesus, is it just like in her bedroom?
I guess. I mean, she's at this point in time like a single mom. I think she probably just kept it somewhere in her room for like safety reasons.
Yeah.
She was also missing a diamond ring. Carol Marie Jonart Beath was born on October 10th, 1954 in Butte in Silver Bow County, Montana, to Robert J. Jonart and Bernice G. Cowan Jonart. She moved to Bellevue after marrying her husband, Pahl, in 1976. And at the time of her death, Carol was working as a bartender at Cucina Cucina. She loved traveling, and she loved outdoor activities.
I feel like it's like super, I mean, like, I guess I don't know the details, but it feels like super bold to break into a home that if you were outside of that home, you would see that someone is awake and talking to someone. And then perhaps even when you're walking through the home, you would hear like a teenager whispering or talking or whatever, maybe even had her light on. So it just seemed, and like maybe they entered from a different part, didn't see her talking to someone through the window. But it's just like, yeah, that just seems like you would notice that and be like, oh, not really the house I want to go into. That kid is up and like.
Right. Finally, on August 30th, 24-year-old Andrea Sue Levine, who went by Randy, met her boyfriend at a restaurant to discuss upcoming plans to go to the San Juan Islands. At around 1:30 a.m., he offered to bring her home, but she declined and drove herself. She had been renting an apartment in the Kingsgate neighborhood of Kirkland, Washington, from Robert Hayes and his wife, who lived in the home above the basement. The couple woke up on the 31st at around 5 a.m. to let their dog out. The dog began to bark wildly, and Robert reported seeing an adult figure in his yard.
Okay.
He called out and the person fled, so he chased them for a short while before going home to call the police. The police checked the yard. They didn't see anything of concern, and so they left without checking on Randy.
Surely nothing could have
She
happened
lives
already.
in the basement. This is her landlord who lives in the house above the basement. They check his yard out. They don't see anyone, but they don't check the basement to see if she's okay.
Okay, but like...
About 4 days later, so Robert sees this figure in his yard on a Friday, so this is a Monday. Robert's wife went into Randy's apartment because she had seen one of her cats out in the yard and it seemed hungry.
Wait, I gotta pause.
Okay.
So, first of all, they don't check on Randy. But, like, also, I wouldn't check on Randy either, because this is just someone out in the yard. And, like, what could he... But hold on. So, was Randy home before this guy got home?
I think so. Yes. She left the restaurant at 1:30 a.m. and this person was seen in the yard at 5 a.m.
But her husband or guy that was
her
there, landlord wasn't like okay, got it. But then no one checks on her again until you're about to tell me from Friday to Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I think is maybe fair because, like, they are just her landlords. Like, they probably don't go check on her a lot.
Yeah, I guess.
But then, like, her cat was out, and they're like, she cares about her cats. Like, why is her cat so hungry? So, Robert's wife, the landlord's wife, walked down the hallway of the basement, and she said that she smelled something kind of coppery. So she kept looking around. She thought it was weird. She went into Randy's bedroom, concerned that what she was smelling was blood, and this is where she discovered Randy's body. Similar to Carol's scene, Randy had been posed spread eagle with her legs sticking straight out, her right arm above her shoulder, and her left arm by her side. She had been stabbed between 231 and 250 times. She had been scratched, and she had been bludgeoned with an aluminum baseball bat, which had bashed her skull in.
But, okay, why? Like, surely, like, I know where this is going, because this is not the first person that's died in this story.
Mm-hmm.
But surely, like, when you walk in on this scene, the first thing you're thinking, right, is this is overkill, this is personal. Yes. Like, I would never be like, this is a serial killer.
Right.
Like, 250 times.
Yeah.
Like, that's absurd. Yeah.
It is absurd.
Yeah. Murder is absurd.
Yeah.
I guess, but...
There was blood spattered across the room. It is believed that the stab wounds came from a small kitchen knife, and it was noted that some were formed into patterns.
Are they Y-shaped?
I don't know. It doesn't say for these patterns.
Help. Send help.
I know. An electric sex toy had been shoved down Randy's throat. The book More Joy of Sex was placed in her left hand, and her favorite amethyst ring was missing.
Okay.
Brain matter was also found on her bed.
From the bat bludgeoning?
Yes.
Okay.
When police arrived at the scene, they noted that the baseball bat had been cleaned and every single knife had been taken out of the home. The only information I could find to tell you about Randy is that she was born in 1966 in West Point, Orange County, New York.
Wow. Poor Randy.
I know. So, when police began their investigation, they were able to quickly focus on George Russell Jr. as a potential suspect. He had frequented many of the same nightclubs the victims had been to in the past 2 months leading up to their deaths. On top of this, George's ex-girlfriend had called in and reported that she suspected him capable of the crimes, particularly because he had had a history of beating her. George's friends reported that he had cut out photos of Marianne and Carol from newspaper reports and taped them to his wall. And that he was saying the police would never find the killer of the, quote, skanky sluts.
Yikes. Which is, like, interesting because these are not, like,
they're not sex workers, no.
They're, like, mothers and...
Yeah.
Like, it's... Okay. Weird.
He also went after Randy's sexuality, claiming that she slept around, used men, and she was a whore.
Okay.
When he was questioned about Mary Ann Polrick's murder, he said that he had been at Papagayo's and that he drove 26-year-old Tamara Francis home from the restaurant, who was a woman that he had long had a crush on.
Okay.
Tamara claims that this was not true. She said that they sat together, he offered to buy her drinks, but she did not leave with him. What did come out to be true was that George had arrived to Papagayo's around 9 p.m. with his friends Erica Avis and Smith McLean, and the three had dinner there. George then took Smith's truck without permission. When he returned the truck the following day, there were vomit stains and mysterious red stains in the seats. These stains were later determined to be Mary Ann Polrick's blood.
Well, that will do it.
Friends of George's also connected him to Carol Beath, claiming that the two were acquaintances. It was reported that the two frequented the Overlake Denny's, and one waitress from the Black Angus restaurant said she had heard from Carol that there was a situation between George and herself that was going on, but was pretty vague about it, other than the fact that it was not a pleasant situation. George would later reveal that he only knew Carol because she was a bartender at the Cucina restaurant, and he had been there a few times.
This man likes to eat out.
Erica Avis also revealed that George knew Randy Levine. On one occasion, after a night out, Randy and her boyfriend had taken 2 separate cars, but weren't both able to drive them home. So Randy's boyfriend drove her car home, and George followed behind them in the boyfriend's car. He had also helped Randy put a new battery in her truck and had been seen talking with her at a bar. George claimed that he had been in Canada the weekend Randy was murdered with friends for Labor Day. However, the friends noted that on the evening Randy was killed, they actually hadn't left the state yet.
Yeah, buddy, that can be verified.
Like, stop lying on like, literally every time he says something, one of his friends is like, no.
Yeah.
They were staying at a motel before heading out the next morning. So they were still in the state of Washington, and then they were all going to leave together for Canada the next day. They claimed that in the middle of the night, George left the motel saying he was going to work.
Yeah, they will remember that.
I need more questions asked at this point, friends. He returned at around 6 a.m. George did not have a car, but Randy's apartment was only about a mile from the hotel, so he could have easily walked there. Mm-hmm. It was believed that the scratches on Randy's body could have been from George's notably long fingernails.
Ew.
And on September 12th, 1990, George was arrested in connection to the murders.
All three?
So, yes.
Okay.
I think it's already pretty clear who did it.
Really?
He knew all three of them. He was being an asshole about it. There's DNA evidence now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you even more reasons why the police think he did it.
Okay. Cool.
So, George Waterfield Russell Jr. was born in Florida. Mm-hmm. What a name.
What a name.
He was born... That's like a politician's name. Like, you could have done something else.
I feel like you could totally be on Southern Charm. Like...
Yes.
I've been... My family's been here since the 1600s. George Waterfield Russell Jr.
Well, I should point out, maybe at this point, that George Waterfield Russell Jr. was black. So...
Just the name.
If his family had been there since the 1600s, it would not have been the same as Catherine Calhoun Dennis's family being there since the 1600s.
Sure, but the name is giving Southern Charm, but also...
It is.
Interesting demographic now.
So he was born in Florida in April of 1958 to Joyce and George Russell Sr. 6 months later, his parents separated, and Joyce remarried a dentist named Wanzel Mobley and moved George Jr. to Mercer Island, Washington. Early in George's childhood, he was getting into trouble, which continually escalated as he got older. He snuck into a waterfront home with two friends when he was in 7th grade, made toast, and then left. He enjoyed hiding forts in the woods for his friends to find, and he was known to peer through blackberry bushes at night. So far, harmless, weird-ass fun for a child.
I guess.
From what we can tell. I don't have a lot of details, so it could have been not, but so far, like...
He's just a weirdo.
Boys will be boys, yeah. In 1971, he got in trouble for truancy, which, in my opinion, is not his fault.
Yeah.
He's in 7th grade. Like, somebody needs to be bringing him to school. Instead of receiving a punishment, he was offered a chance to work at the Mercer Island police station, which he accepted. Oh, wait, no. He's not in 7th grade at this point. My bad. He's in high school. So I guess he could be driving himself.
Yeah.
But instead of receiving a punishment, he was offered a chance to work at the Mercer Island police station, which he accepted. At this time, he began working as an informant for the police, ratting out some of his friends who had stolen guitars.
Okay.
When George got into high school...
That's a priority for them?
I mean, I guess take what you can get, if that's the only crime he knows about.
Yeah.
That's the one he'll inform you on. When George got into high school, he was only 5 feet tall and was nicknamed the Fly, Chicken George, the Mouth, and Leapin' George.
Those seem very different, all of them.
There's a lot of nicknames.
Yeah.
So he began hanging out with younger kids to fit in better. Like, not kids his age, but kids his size.
Right.
At one point, George and 2 of his classmates snuck out of school and were arrested the next afternoon 50 miles away. After this incident, police noted that George refused to take blame or responsibility, which was later highlighted as a symptom of sociopathy. George was reported to have an interest in guns from an early age, so 2 of his friends took him by bus to a gun exchange in Seattle in May of 1973. Afterwards, he took his friends to a porn shop and snuck in because they were only 15 at this time.
Okay.
A few days later, George went back to the store alone, where he happened upon two men having sex inside.
Okay.
He watched them and later noted that this was really his first sexual experience.
Okay.
And it apparently had like a deep effect on him.
I mean, I guess if you've stayed and watched
in
the
high
whole
school,
thing, then it would.
it seemed like George was... Yeah. In high school, it seemed like George was a loner, known to keep a list of his deceased classmates.
How many classmates did he have that were deceased?
Right? I don't know. He smoked pot occasionally. He was not really interested in dating, and he was very secretive.
I'm confused.
He was interested. Yeah. Like, how... this is odd.
Like one. I had like one.
I'm just telling you what I know.
That is so strange.
He was interested in the CIA and detective work. He was also into Led Zeppelin, once sneaking his friends into a concert, and he idolized white athletes.
Okay.
In fact, he got angry when people pointed out that he was black.
Okay.
It's still giving Southern charm.
Yeah.
During high school, he refused to date black girls and instead struck up friendships and flirtationships with white girls who always ultimately turned him down. On top of his growing marijuana habit, George was stealing pills from his stepdad's dental supplies, drinking, and taking Valium. He got in trouble for sharing drugs with classmates, trespassing in the park, violating curfew, and shoplifting. By the time George was 16, he was living alone with his stepfather. His stepfather had cheated on George's mom, with a white businesswoman, so she took his sister and moved to East Maryland. I really don't know why she left him with his stepdad.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, he's not his son. But once the stepfather remarried, we begin to see even stronger red flags from George. He became obsessed with his new stepmother, spying on her.
Is it even your stepmother?
Huh?
Is it even your stepmother?
Right, his
stepmother?
Stepfather's wife.
Yeah, weird.
He spied on her and regularly made her uncomfortable. He also, around this time, began to leak confidential police reports and was asked to stop coming to the police station.
Yeah, y'all brought a freaking teenager in there.
Yeah, a teenager who has a criminal record, and is not stopping.
Yeah, what?
Building it up. He began to cut class and quickly became a regular in juvenile court, but always seemed to manage to talk his way out of the situation. As he increasingly made his stepmother uneasy, he was kicked out of the house and sent to live off of the island with either his aunts or a friend of his stepdad's named Dr. Michael Washington. I've seen both.
Okay.
However, he eventually went back to the island and began to terrorize the kids he used to hang out with and take their cars for days at a time, threatening them with a knife if they asked for them back. At one point, he put a chokehold on a boy for this reason.
Jeez.
He was arrested in 1975 for possession of marijuana and for giving beer to kids. When he was arrested, he was found to have a kitchen knife up one of his sleeves, and he was put on probation. The following year, he was charged with criminal trespass, possession of marijuana, second-degree burglary, possession of stolen property, and, quote, nuisance noise.
Ah.
Yes. He was tried in a district court and sentenced to 3 days in King County Jail.
Why is that a sentence?
He reoffended and served 4 more days, and then reoffended again and served an additional 32 days.
Nice.
In 1977, he dropped out of high school, and having difficulty keeping a steady job, he began to depend on petty theft to get by. During this time, he borrowed a Jaguar after midnight from a childhood friend. The term borrowed is used loosely here.
I was going to say.
When he was
knife
caught with
point.
it, when he was caught with it, he said he had permission to use the car, but the friend put together a list of George's arrests and convictions since junior high.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look, I did not give him permission, and look at this, all this shit he's done.
How interesting.
And George served another 35 days in county jail.
Mm.
After he was released, he went back to this friend's house several times, the same friend, and stole silver dollars, clothes, and other small items. He then obtained a police scanner and punched in all of the local police channels in order to hear what was going on. He was known to take vehicles regularly and would sometimes rob the same houses 3 to 4 times, continuing to only take small items. He used his former job with the police station to buy women in, and he regularly visited cocktail lounges around Seattle hoping for hookups.
Yeah, y'all are like giving him like way too much like information, power, like whatever by like why does he have access to any of this?
However, after impersonating a police officer and being banned from one particular club and a string of rejections, he spent more time in jail, all more short stretches of 1 day, then 2 days, and then a week. Like just little tiny bits of time in jail. While there, other black inmates began referring to him as an Oreo, saying he talked and acted white. Which normally is offensive, but I feel like he probably was like, thank you.
Yeah, it is offensive.
It is offensive, but I feel like he was probably not offended by it.
Yeah.
After he was released, he was hired as an assistant manager of a teen disco called Tonight's the Night.
That is cheesy as hell.
It's spelled Tonite apostrophe S, the Nite. During the 2 years he worked there, he lost his temper with guests and stole thousands of dollars. He wrecked a car and told the cop who arrested him that if he had a gun, the cop would be dead. He just just doing whatever he wants. No repercussions.
Yeah.
He used plates he had stolen from a friend to put on his car and was sentenced to a day in jail. Then he had another car accident, and when they went to court, his stepmom, she's suddenly back in his life for some reason, blamed his bad behavior on his mother leaving when he was a teenager and convinced them to give him another chance. Ma'am, you don't like him anyway.
Yeah.
Don't vouch for him.
He was already weird, but I must say, also weird that his mom did leave him. So, like, a fair point, I guess. But for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. But he was already doing shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. After this, he tried to break into the owner of Tonight's the Night's car and was arrested. He escaped out of a holding room at the police station and managed to evade 2 foot chases, a helicopter chase, and 3 K-9 units.
Yikes.
He was finally caught, arrested, and convicted of his first felony conviction for the escape and was sentenced to 10 months in county jail.
Yeah, what? I thought you were going to give me much more time than that.
Nope. After serving another short sentence, he tried to turn things around and helped police set up stings to catch drug dealers and buyers and people involved in credit card fraud, as well as phoning in tips to Crime Watch.
Why do the police want his help anymore?
Like, okay, great, you want to turn your life around. We don't trust you, though.
Yeah.
And, of course, his good behavior did not last long. And he began to have sex with preteen and teenage girls.
Rape them. Yeah.
When he was 28, he began a relationship with a 14-year-old, and while she agrees that the sex they had was consensual, she did report that he forced her to perform oral sex on him. Also, regardless, she is a child.
Mm-hmm.
So
it can be consensual in your mind, I guess.
In your brain, but yeah.
Yeah.
He was arrested for stealing a TV, lottery tickets, and selling beer to minors. He was sentenced to 30 days, but ended up serving 7 months. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, wow. So his behavior was so bad?
Yeah, we're extending your stay for bad behavior. Yeah.
Yeah.
While in prison, he began to write letters to this 14-year-old girl, talking about marriage and about the sexual fantasies he had about her. After he was released, she became pregnant and got an abortion. 5 weeks after he was released this time, he pleaded guilty to criminal trespass and possession of a dangerous weapon. He spent 5 days in jail and underwent psychological counseling. The counseling brought forward the following information. George was found to be self-centered, had a limited capacity to form personal relationships, was impulsive, demonstrated poor judgment, had little patience, was easily frustrated, took risks, was often rebellious toward authority figures, and had trouble complying with the standards and values of society. Duh.
Yeah, what? Y'all had to
You didn't need to bring him in for that. Yeah.
Just read his history, folks.
Right. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. He was then banned from Denny's for stealing tips. He was hired
this assessment?
Yeah, so he gets his assessment done. He's released from jail. Keeps going. He was hired at the Nintendo arcade, but over an 8-month period of working there, he stole $23,000 and was fired.
For how? How did, from a cash register?
Consistently?
I don't know. What? How do you?
I think yes, cash register, and also tips, and it's an arcade also, so
yeah,
out of the games maybe. After turning 30, George became a born-again Christian.
Nice. Good for George.
And moved in with his girlfriend, Mindy Charlie.
That's a cute name.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, the fear of God did not do much for him because he began to physically abuse Mindy and went to King County Jail for 5 days for drug charges. He became heavily interested in the Green River Killer and his victims. He then committed around 60 burglaries in Kirkland and was arrested for domestic assault charges. And I'm not sure why, but around April of 1990, so shortly before a few months before these murders happened, he was banned from the Black Angus restaurant.
Or the McDonald's. Who really knows?
Or the McDonald's. This is also so the Black Angus, he had been at before, and so I was like, maybe it was a McDonald's and people just saw Black Angus these other times and threw it in maybe. There. I know that's a lot of information, but I did want to include everything I found because the red flags were popping off and going unnoticed by everyone else somehow.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they were noticed. They just
but then they were
see that as a risk.
Right. So now we're back to 1990. Murders have happened. George has been arrested.
Okay.
During the investigation into George's involvement in the 3 murders, his DNA was matched to semen samples taken from Carol Beath's murder scene. Additionally, fiber pieces found at the Mary Ann Polrick scene matched the truck George was driving that night.
Buddy.
Mm-hmm. Randy's amethyst ring was eventually found at a pawn shop. It had been brought there by a woman who claimed she had received the ring from George Russell Jr. during the Labor Day weekend when Randy was killed.
So he's just like giving it to random women?
He's like, here, my friend, take this. And I don't know exactly who that woman was. I think it may have been the woman that he was at Papa Gallo's with.
Oh, okay.
So like a friend. Investigators also found it suspicious that George had several books on Ted Bundy, although he later denied that he would consider himself a fan.
Just a avid learner.
Loves. I mean, to be fair, I have books about Ted Bundy too.
Yeah. They should not look through our literature collections.
At one point, it was speculated that George was also the perpetrator of the Gainesville Ripper case that left 5 college students dead in Gainesville, Florida, in August of 1990, but that was quickly determined to be untrue. Probably because
Florida's far away.
Florida's far away, and he murdered Randy in August, and I think Carol too. At trial, George pleaded not guilty.
What a bold guy.
He said, I don't really care what y'all found. I didn't do it.
Yeah, he said, this is my story and I'm sticking to it, folks.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. The behavioral science unit of the FBI took on a role in the investigation. Profiler Steve Etter believed that they had good evidence from the first murder and was working to find more ways to tie the 3 together. Initially, he had concerns on whether George was the right suspect. He had been a petty criminal up until this point. He was handsome, well-spoken, and charming. He had plenty of friends and connections with the police, which made it difficult to believe that he would escalate to commit such horrible sexually based crimes.
Yeah, because being charming doesn't help you get into the basement of women's homes.
Right.
And
well, they were like, why would he need to resort to those measures? The women would just let him in. And they would willingly have sex with him. Is what they thought. Plus, George was black, and the 3 victims were white. The BSU had found that it was very rare for serial killers to kill outside of their own race.
Except when they have a hyperfixation on white women. Wait?
By this point in the 90s, though, they were beginning to see a little bit more of this. So, like, when they first started the BSU, they'd be like, absolutely not. Never happens. If the victims are black, the killer is black. If the victims are white, the killer is white. Now, in the 90s, they are beginning to, like, see it differently if there is, like, a hyperfixation.
Right.
They found out that George had been known to date both white and black women. I don't know when they thought he dated black women.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It was he pretty explicitly said, no, I won't.
Yeah.
But apparently. And he had friends of all races, which indicated to them that it was possible he did meet these 3 women at a club before killing them.
Did they also find that he dated girls in all of this research? Which is criminal. But whatever.
He impregnated a girl? They connected the 3 murders in the following ways. They were all Blitz-style attacks. The women had been left naked and posed in various derogatory positions, but the sexual violence escalated with each attack. Which I would argue, yes, that it escalated from the first to the second and third, but I think the second was the most, like, as far as the sexual violence, like, the harshest.
Yeah, didn't you say that in the third, something was forced into her throat?
Yes.
Like, I think you could argue, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's, like, assigning value, but, like, it doesn't really seem to me like a clear linear escalation. Like, it just seemed that he used different orifices
Yeah.
in
And I
each.
think it's also like worth pointing out that Mary Ann was found in a public place.
Right.
And the other two were found in their home. So I think that that's also like a part of the escalation is
Yeah.
like he has more time
Right.
and more privacy.
Yeah.
At the trial, John Douglas testified about the degrading posing specifically. He pointed out that posing and staging are different. While staging is used in crimes to throw investigators off or frame the situation differently, posing, which is what was done at these three scenes, is part of a signature. John Douglas was quoted at the trial saying, quote, "We don't get that many cases of posing, treating the victim like a prop to leave a specific message. These are crimes of anger, crimes of power. It's the thrill of the hunt, it is the thrill of the kill, and it is the thrill afterwards of how the subject leaves that victim and how he's basically beating the system. The probability is extremely high that it was a single suspect." End quote.
Yes.
Bob Capel, the chief criminal investigator with the state attorney general's office and a veteran of the Green River Task Force. Congratulations, George Russell Jr.
Woo.
You love the Green River Killer.
Yee.
Now you get to be just like him. He also testified at the trial, pointing out that of more than 1,000 murder cases he'd been a part of, only approximately 10 had included posing, and these were the worst versions of posing he had seen.
Interesting.
The defense had planned to bring in an FBI investigator of their own to refute the idea that these murders were connected, but he failed to show up to the pretrial hearing after saying he had other commitments. And ultimately, the judge believed that the murders were the work of a serial killer. At the end of the trial in October of 1991, a jury of 6 men and 6 women found George Russell Jr. guilty of all 3 murders, one being counted as a first-degree murder, and the other 2 being considered 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. I'm assuming it's the 2 that are in their own homes.
Probably, yeah.
It was noted that he showed no emotion during the time when the verdict was read. In November of 1991, George Russell Jr. was given 2 terms of life imprisonment plus 28 years, and at 65 years old, he is currently serving his time at Clallam Bay Correction Center, a maximum security prison in Walla Walla, Washington.
Do you know how old he was when he committed the murders?
He was
like
born
30s?
He was born in 58. And this
okay.
happened in 1990.
Okay.
So
32.
If you are welcome to do that math.
32.
Okay. I want to end with this. This case was probably one of the hardest ones for me to research. I found a 6-page report on George Russell Jr.'s entire life leading up to the murders, and I couldn't even find a birthday for Randy Levine. So I think on one hand, it's like great to know how terrible this killer was even before he killed, to see the signs. But on the other hand, like when I do cover a serial killer case, I want to be able to tell you more about who these people were outside of how their lives were taken.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find that information. So what I have put together instead is some notes I found online that people had left in honor of the women.
Okay.
So, what was said about Randy? First, I watched the story about you today and it is heartbreaking. No one deserves this, and I wish your life had turned out differently. I hope that you are at peace. Much love to your family. The next one says, you will always be remembered and loved. And the last one says, may you continue to rest in peace. Your story touched my heart in so many ways. I pray that your spirit will protect your family and loved ones. You are an angel, very pretty. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
That's so sweet.
About Carol, the first one says, rest in heavenly peace. There's like a website that's like a virtual like cemetery almost.
Okay.
And so you can leave like flowers and leave notes, and that's where I got these.
That's cute.
About Carol, The first one says, "Rest in heavenly peace. Your horrific story touched me in so many ways. May your soul and spirit protect your loving family." Next one says, "God bless you and your family." And the last one says, "Rest in peace, Carol." And about Marianne, the first one says, "So very sorry for your loss. May you be resting in sweet heavenly peace. No one can hurt you anymore, innocent angel." Next one says, "May your soul continue to rest in peace. I did not know you, but I read the horrific story of how you were murdered. I leave this rose in your name. In Jesus' name I pray, amen." The next one says, "I saw an episode on YouTube, and what happened to you was awful. What a terrible person took your life away. My condolences to your family and friends. Peace be with you, Marianne." The next one says, "I am so sorry for your loss. Just seen the episode on ID channel. May God bless you, family, and friends." And the last one says, "May the angels watch over you, Marianne. God bless you."
That's very nice.
Thank you.
That's cool that they have that. And that, like, I don't know, it, like, kind of, like, reaffirms the telling of these stories. Like, even if the stories do kind of have to focus on, like, the killer themselves, like, people obviously heard the stories and then found their way to this virtual cemetery and, like,
you can also see on
speak to them, not George.
On this website, you can typically see photos of headstones and of the people. And so, like, that's where I got, like, the information about, like, what was written on Mary Ann's headstone. Was, like, you can see, like, the year they were born, the year they died, and, like, the notes that their families chose to put on there. So it's, like, it was nice to be able to find that for this one because there was so little information on them as people, but I probably am not going to do another serial killer case for a while just because it really irritates me to have to focus on one, like, incredibly horrible person.
Yeah.
And less on the people who were harmed.
Yeah. Well, good work. Mary has been putting this one off for a while. I've had this tell all of you
a long time. Let me see. Let's check the version history and see the last time I touched this.
Mary said, "I don't want to do it."
I have not looked at this since August 6th.
Wow.
Until today. So that's how long it's been sitting there, fully written.
But
not being read to you people. Sorry. I've been holding it out on you. I'm sure you're so sad that you had to miss it for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm finally gonna get back into cases that I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Reading about, I guess. In a way. Learning. Yeah. All right.
Any final anything?
Go check out our YouTube for a YouTube only bonus episode if you haven't already about the Oakville blogs.
Yeah.
Our first mystery bonus episode.
Yep. It's short. You won't have to be there forever.
Yeah. And I think probably our next bonus episode will be another, like, current news one.
Maybe.
Yeah. Our mom has been requesting a current news one for quite some time.
It's true.
Her birthday is in December, so maybe we'll give it to her.
We might oblige.
We shall see.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.